wander in. Let's go ahead and mute. All right, mics are unmuted, so anything you say, people will be able to see live. So
Understood.
Just be careful with that. I got a couple things to take care of here as we get started. Should have the live on here. Look, there we are. We're going to share that to a page. Laclede Relics History Show. Switch.
Bada bang.
That's my workaround. It's like on 10 other pages, but now it's on ours too. So leave page, come back to here. All right, we're going to give a couple minutes before anybody else gets here. Thank you all that came. We've invited all of you here for reasons because you're either involved in history, you're our friends, you've been involved in the projects. We know that you've been involved with us at some point in level. As you know, Eric's been a historian and worked here in Lebanon on history and genealogy for a long time. I do video stuff, and it just was a natural consequence that we decided to get together and do this. A little bit of the history is Gene and the Historical Society about a year ago-ish, right? Came and approached me and wanted to do some sort of video, some sort of something. I put out a call for people that want to do podcasts. And we had an iteration of this that was people bringing antiques to us and us talking about them. That kind of fell through. Then I tried to host the show, and my ADHD would not let me do that. Like, I couldn't do enough research to do it justice, so I reached out to Sarah. Sarah comes in, we record a handful of stuff, and everybody knows the wonderful job she's doing with downtown, and she needed to focus on that instead of that, so it kind of went to sleep again. After that, Eric had reached out to me at one point about talking about some things, so I twisted arms and made promises and stuff and got Eric to come on board. So
You wouldn't tell me the details, just
Right.
come talk to me.
Yeah,
just come talk to me.
I refuse, so you can take it from here, Eric.
Well, from that phone call, or basically messaging back and forth, I wanted to talk
camera.
about.
There you go.
I wanted to talk about some of Lebanon history to him. So it's like I would like to be a part of the show that you have going on. Essentially, not realizing that I was ending up to be the host and the historian. So funny how things work out. But when I started asking him the details, and he's like, "Well, I would rather talk to you in person." So. Showed up at the office, and by the time I left, he'd sweet talked me into it, and it seemed to be, honestly, a good match for both of us. So I was flattered that he reached out and considered me. And, as he said, I do a lot of the history, but he does the magic kind of behind the curtains. He's the Wizard of Oz, so to speak. So.
I don't know that I would go that far, but so Eric does all the research, writes a script, brings in the pictures. We record in my office, usually 3 or 4 episodes at a time, and then my job starts. Like, up until Eric comes in and records, everything's really easy for me. It's really easy when you record. I just hit a button and make sure like everything looks okay. Then my job starts of taking the stories, putting them in order, making graphics, getting the pictures in order, and presenting it to you guys. It's been really a labor of love, and we've challenged each other.
Yes.
Right?
We don't always agree, but that's not a bad thing.
We want this to be a history show for everybody. Not just you that have cultivated history and have lived history, and for people like Jack, right, and my children and stuff like that to be involved. One of the biggest complaints I hear is no one cares about our history anymore. So our job was to cultivate that and figure out a way to involve everybody into that history. So
And
as I give Eric the last word, which I usually try to do, as I got to set the video up so it can go live out there, and then we're just minutes away from the premiere of the first episode. I'm asking you to stall, Eric.
Okay, so one of the things that we do kind of butt heads with a little bit, and he's trying to keep me on the straight and narrow. I want to do a true history, show, but I don't want to be boring history. I was not a huge history buff in school. I became more interested in local history after Harold Bell Wright, and kind of drawn into that. And as Ryan has kind of guided me, we need to make a show that is acceptable for the true hardcore historian as well as the youngest generations that could be watching it, and everyone in between. And as he was saying, a lot of times I will come in, I get long-winded, I like to talk. I think that's a historian thing. When we get together and we start talking history, we build off of each other and we start talking. And I never want to come across that I know it all, because history is not made by one person. It is not created by one person or discovered by one person. It takes the tribe, so to speak. It takes the entire town. And I have learned just as much from many of the people that's here in the audience just by sharing, them sharing with us. That's how we keep history alive. That's what Lebanon needs. So many other towns all across the United States have built entire businesses, entire downtowns off of their history. And we, as in Lebanon, we kind of got behind the 8 ball on that because we've destroyed a lot of it. We've erased it. We've forgotten it. So.
And that's what we want to try to do. We want to help bring that back and reestablish that, which brings us to the description of the first episode. Now, when we got together, we threw around many, many different ideas. Now, we have episodes coming about Gasconade Hotel, Harold Bell Wright, the 80s, all of those things. But we kind of wanted an overview. And as I sat in the office with my son today, I realized, I don't think we did it intentionally, our first episode is a roadmap for where we're going for the rest of this show. So if you'll give me just a second, I think it's time that we watch it. I got to do a little trickery here. So the people at home, feel free to comment and interact with this. I got that set up there. And after we're done, me and Eric are going to take some questions about the episode process, whatever you guys have. Now, at that point, the live's going to end. Sorry, home people, you have about 20 minutes to get here, because as soon as the live ends, we're going to show you a finished episode 2, which will not come out for another month. And all we ask you for this is that you tell people to go watch it if you enjoy it, okay? So give me just a second, and I'm going to get all the magic happening here.
And while he's doing that, honestly, it couldn't have happened at a better time. 175th anniversary. I mean, perfect timing. In this first episode, hello, family and friends. Welcome to Laclede Relics. I'm your host and historian, Eric Tudor. With our 175th anniversary of Lebanon happening now, we wanted to talk about some major points of history that put and kept Lebanon on the map. From pre-Lebanon, the WyoTA years, to the Civil War, to Boomtown, to the Mother Road of Route 66. Sit back and enjoy learning about how Lebanon became the town it is today, and I hope that you can learn something. Now, on with the show. Our earliest origins of the region. For Lebanon's origin story, we've got to go back to the Native American Indian name. That was given to the area, which is WyoTA. Now, Missouri became an official state back in 1821. However, most of the mid-region of the state was nothing more than a hunting camp for many tribes, but notably for the Osage Indians. Now, here they found an abundance of deer, bear, buffalo, and wild turkey. They would leave their homes in Oklahoma and Kansas and make the journey to our area, where they would set up temporary camps for weeks and months at a time, harvesting food to take back to their people. Now, this left most of the area rugged and unsettled up until just a few years before the Civil War. Now, one of the only known landmarks of the Native American origins would have to be the old sinkhole off of Harwood Avenue. Kind of lays down in the Old Town area of Lebanon. As you're traveling down Harwood, it would be on the left-hand side. Traveling north, and it's almost directly across from St. Louis Street. Now here the Native American Indians were said to have celebrated their hunts by holding powwows and dances inside this massive sinkhole.
We jump to the mid-1800s. We're going to call that the era of the stagecoaches, which delivered not only U.S. mail, but also travelers throughout the area. And I've discovered several of these in our little direct area of Laclede County and in and around Lebanon. One of the first ones is the Butterfield stagecoach. Now, although it's a bit of a mystery on the exact location, due to it did not have a concrete foundation or a rock foundation, we do know it laid out east of Lebanon, and we also know that it was owned and operated by the Appling family for many years. Another stagecoach in the area would be Old Wire Road Stagecoach. Now, it was owned by the Benton family, and it was located out Old Route 66. According to Lebanon native, lawyer, historian Don O. Vernon, Wild Bill Hickok actually once stayed there. Now, a third I stumbled across by purchasing an original 1910s postcard. Now, according to the handwritten notes, and I'm going to show this now, on the front it says, house owned one time by Grandpa Allison in Lebanon, Missouri. Now, based on research, I found out that this house actually served as a stagecoach stop as well as a boarding house. We're going to call it the Allison home. It was built around 1840, and it lies off of Finch or New Buffalo Road on the left-hand side as you're heading out towards the radio station. It's currently owned by the Donald Jones family and has been for about 20 years or more. It is considered one, if not the oldest house still standing in Laclede County. While we have no proof, legends also state that Abraham Lincoln once stayed there while traveling through the area. Now we jump to the founding of Lebanon. This would be in 1849, 175 years ago as we're here upon the anniversary. Now, Lebanon was officially founded sometime in 1849. The old name Wyoda was actually considered, but eventually the name Lebanon, based upon Lebanon, Tennessee, was selected. Some of the early pioneering families were from Tennessee, and apparently they were quite fond of the area of Lebanon, Tennessee, and they wanted to adopt that name for Lebanon, Missouri. The Benjamin B. Harrison and James M. Appling families together donated 50 acres that would serve as the building spot to locate what is commonly now known as Old Town, Lebanon, Missouri. It originally laid out kind of in a public square of sorts, complete with the original log cabin courthouse. As I had mentioned earlier, the old sinkhole to your left off of Harwood. I remember tales in the 1960s and 70s when there was an opening found down in the sinkhole that led to a cave. Now, the story goes that some teenagers got inside and they required an emergency rescue. Shortly after, the city, we're going to say sometime probably in the late 60s, early 70s, put up bars to keep people out, and later still it was backfilled for safety. Then we jump to the old Vernon School, which was once located where Vernon Heights is today. You'll see it there on the map that we've got up, but not before it served as the city park. Now, the park was later moved up the street, up by where the water tower is today, just a few blocks, and Vernon Heights Apartments was built in the location. Lebanon's first school, the Old Academy, was actually located in Old Town, built in 1855, and it was mentioned in Harold Bell Wright's book, The Calling of Dan Matthews, which already was in ruins when he lived here in about 1905-1906 era, and you can see a picture of that we have as well. There's actually so much rich history about Old Town. We will definitely be covering that on some future episodes. But by 1863, the nation was torn apart, North versus South, during the Civil War. There were notable Civil War skirmishes in and around Lebanon and Laclede County for sure, but I will share a few of my favorites that I've learned from locals. Now, one story was told to me by Virginia Rhodes back in the 1990s, and it involved what was known as the Keystone Mansion House. Now, it was torn down to advance Clark Street when Easter Elementary School was built. Now, she had told me a story that had been passed down to her about Union troops sneaking into Lebanon on Old Wire Road, which is Cannoli Street leading out to YY Highway. You can see there on the slide of the Keystone entryways. You can still see one of the brick stone entryways still there today, even though that they did bulldoze the house down. Now, as Union forces approached, a black servant man noticed, and he went to ring the large dinner bell on the side of the porch to alert the Kellerman and Nelson family that originally lived there. He was then shot by one of the advancing Union soldiers and fell dead. Now, many years later, when I was serving in the Laclede Historical Society, there was an African-American family. They had traveled down to give a presentation on Old Town in particular and some of their family that was here. They stated they had family from the area and that there was actually an old black slave cemetery behind the Keystone Mansion. This would now be located off of Harwood in the corner of North 5, across from what today is Enterprise Rent-A-Car. The last story is a Civil War story that takes place back in Old Town. One evening, the Union troops marched into Old Wire Road, also known as the Telegraph Road, which brought the telegraph wires into Lebanon, up Cherry Street over to Wood Street. Now there they found what would become eventually the Wood Street Baptist Church site. At the time, it was a livery stable. They took control of the dwellings there, setting up a camp and a medical hospital. Upon leaving, they burned everything. However, the timber structure still stood. And later, after the Civil War, freed slaves would put a roof on this structure and enclose it to become what we know today as the Wood Street Baptist Church. The Civil War finally came to a close in 1868, which allowed the railroad to proceed from its previous stop in Rolla, Missouri, to our little town of Lebanon. The San Francisco Railroad approached our founding forefathers and asked them for a piece of land to be donated to build the train depot. For whatever reason, the railroad was turned down, but so determined, the railroad company said, "Fine, we'll take it a mile from you, and eventually, maybe, the little town of Lebanon will expand its boundaries to there." As I was told, the founding forefathers had second thoughts, even trying to reach back out to the railroad company without any luck. So we did the next best thing. We packed up the entire city and moved it where the railroad tracks were coming through. That's why you have an old town and why Main Street was left behind and gave birth to Commercial Street, essentially our new Main Street downtown. Thus, why many people ask, why does Lebanon not lay traditionally north to south, east to west? Well, because the tracks were already being laid, and we just followed its path. The Magnetic Well, 1889. With the Frisco Railroad and the city of Lebanon now residing together, it opened up great chances of prosperity. Now, previously in 1889, there had been a great discovery of sorts while drilling a well in the new area of Lebanon, near the end of Commercial. While drilling, workers noticed the auger bit was covered with water and it seemed to be magnetic, with metal flakes sticking to it, as well as some would report small tools. Looking back, it's argued that this may have been nothing more than friction to the metal bit, the auger bit, and stone, causing the metal itself to become a magnet. However, the conclusion was quickly met with, we have a magnetic well with water. Built to help prepare for visitors for all of this U.S. tourism that would be coming through was the grandest of all Lebanon hotels, rivaling anything that you would find even in St. Louis or Kansas City, the Gasconade Hotel. This beautiful hotel could accommodate up to 500 visitors with front door service. It had a circular drive that brought tourists around this great water fountain that was in the front. Now, at first this was done by horse and stagecoach, then later a trolley car. Rumors are that the tracks still lay underneath that paved road that leads over to now Gasconade Park. As we come more present, the Mother Road, Route 66. Moving forward to 1926, Lebanon was again faced with some major decision-making. The Mother Road, Route 66, approached, following some of the old original Indian trails, the stagecoach, the telegraph lines, all these dirt roads, and it would become known as the Mother Road, over 2,400 miles long, connecting Chicago all the way to Los Angeles, California. The founding forefathers seem to have learned their lesson with the whole railroad ordeal, and this time they fought to get Route 66 to come to Lebanon. However, the railroad had encountered some major issues crossing many rivers, including the Hazel Green, the Piney, the Little Piney, Ruby Dew, and Gasconade in multiple spots. and it was also noted the slight elevation of the plateau that Lebanon sat on. All of these meant more money and more time to build more bridges to prepare for the Mother Road. An alternative path was proposed, skipping Lebanon entirely. Instead, it was suggested for the less challenging route on what would later become Highway 60 would divert around Lebanon and go to Springfield. Many local businessmen, including Don O. Vernon, resident, lawyer, and close friend to the author Harold Bell Wright, took on the task with a vengeance. A group of delegates from Lebanon went to the capital in Jeff City, accompanied by the Lebanon Band. Now, they performed for the state executives, put on quite the show, as I am told. They were successful in getting the state to meet at Hazel Green, where there was already an existing steel trestle bridge. The founding fathers and locals suggested using that bridge to help save money and time, and offered an alternative route in and around through Bear Creek to come up to Lebanon. With much trouble and time, it was finally declared Route 66 would lead directly through our little town of Lebanon. Thanks everyone for watching and being a part of this journey with us on Laclede Relics. Please stay tuned as we take deeper dives on some of these subjects and beyond. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend. Drop what you've learned today in the comments. If there's any particular part of Lebanon's history you'd like to see us feature, feel free. Just let us know. Until next time, I'm your host and historian, Eric Tudor, along with my editor extraordinaire and producer, Ryan Shear. Together, we invite you on another trip down memory lane that you'll only find on Laclede Relics. In comments, if there's any particular part of Lebanon's history you'd like to see us feature, feel free. Just let us know. Until next time, I'm your host and historian, Eric Tudor, along with my editor extraordinaire and producer, Ryan Shear. Together, we invite you on another trip down memory lane that you'll only find on Laclede Relics.
All right, that's the first episode. What do you guys think? Thank you. Can I see it? You'd raise a hand as somebody that learned something about their hometown today. That actually learned something new about their hometown.
Awesome.
That's the whole point of the show. He was primarily, I was watching him, like out of all the people, and
Jack was actually paying attention.
Yes, yes. So when I say I want to make it for everybody, that makes me happy. So viewers at home, Bruce Owen. Viewers at home, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop. Do you guys have any questions about the first episode or the process of how we got there?
How many years have you been researching this, or how long has it taken you to kind of compile?
Born native of Lebanon. On my mother's side, go back probably 7 generations. Probably at about the age of 12, I started getting interested in local history. Like I said, never was a big history buff in school, but the local history really caught my attention. And it all started with Harold Bell Wright.
Okay, so we have an issue right now. Bruce Owen, hi buddy. There's a couple discrepancies in what you said. So we've talked about how we handle discrepancies, because history is an interpretive thing. We all get facts in a box, right? And then we want this as a group thing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's how we all learn together.
Yeah. So as far as those discrepancies, well, Bruce, I'll have you reach out to handle those specifically. But if you guys see something that you know more about, one of the crazy things, I'm not even on camera, one of the crazy things that we find out is the next episode that we're going to preview is about Magnetic Water and Gasconade Hotel. Nobody outside of 3 people in this room has actually seen the finished episode. So, but when we started that episode and it kind of got out that we were doing it, we can do a whole nother episode about what we learned after we produced the first episode.
Absolutely.
So we are not going to be offended at all in any way, shape, or form if something we said is incorrect. That's the way history is. It's an evolving thing that we want to do. So feel free to let us know, hey, this was it, this was added to it, and all of that. So
And
we're not
honestly,
above learning and going out and reproducing an episode.
With a lot of the old history like that, I mean, you're going back to Civil War time frames. A lot of that was never recorded. It was passed down by word of mouth. All it took was one person in that chain to get some detail wrong, and now that's what we're considering to be factual. But there's always somebody out there that's got a little bit more information that kind of connects those dots.
Yes. Any other questions?
What did Bruce say? What's he mad
Oh, you're live. They can hear you. So the Nelson family had anything to do with the Keystone Place. It was E.B. Kellerman.
E.B. Kellerman.
Okay.
Understood.
So,
And I actually, since we've recorded that, Bruce and I have sat down several times and interviewed.
okay.
And there's another bug in the first episode
Right.
that I have caught myself
Yeah.
since the time we've recorded. So
Yeah, so we'll go in and correct that. What we'll do is we'll either go in and we'll put an overlay saying, hey, there's a correction, or in the description, and A.T. Nelson donated land for Route 66. Because I know there was other people involved in Route 66, because when I was talking to Kenny Howe, if you're watching, hey, that there were other families involved. And like I said, we have to kind of tone it down, because as a middle-aged man, take no offense at this, nobody wants to hear a middle-aged man just drone on about history for half an hour, 45 minutes. That's just
or
the
so
fact
I'm
that
told
we're faced,
anyhow.
right?
So
So my next question was, you guys, did you enjoy it?
Yes.
Okay.
was it a fun history lesson?
Yes.
Okay.
That.
Was there any part you found boring?
Not
You
gonna
can
hurt
be
our
honest.
feelings.
We're doing research. We want to know. Yes.
Ryan, not for this age.
Yeah.
I don't know if the younger people would be receptive to it.
For this?
I'll say that my high school students are getting the history bug. Of course, getting out and seeing it firsthand is going to allow students to see where their family came from, and it's the people that they start connecting to their family history. I have a young lady who's the 6th great granddaughter of Colonel Miles Vernon, and she's like spread the whole class on trying to research more about that connection to Lebanon.
Okay.
Very good.
And that was Eric Adams, teacher. What other accolades? Just I didn't turn the camera around. I had a camera to face the audience, but I didn't know how you guys felt about being on there. So.
You're not on camera.
Oh, all right. It doesn't. Look, I'm not on camera in my own show in the mornings, right? Good. I need that. All right. So nobody found anything boring. Everybody enjoyed it. Is there? Yes, Melinda.
I'm curious as far as sources, what were some of the most fruitful sources that you found for local history?
Postcards and newspaper clippings.
Just for since I didn't walk over that, it was Melinda Fries. She had a question about what was the most and best sources that you found.
I'm an old paper junkie. My wife and I used to own an antique shop many years ago, right after we were first married. And I love old paper stuff. I love the smell of it. I love the texture of it. I love reading it. And you can find so much stuff that's been forgotten. And by doing that, I've started a postcard collection of basically Lebanon. I've got somewhere around 350, I think, right now. But
So-
you can learn so much just
Yes.
off of an image or
So-
some scribbles on the back.
There's an episode that we filmed, so we're going to get into going on the continuing. So I'm going to let people go at home go about 5 minutes, so you got 5 minutes to get to BoaT Town to see episode 2. All right, so I work in marketing. I'm just this way. That we filmed, we usually film about once every 2 weeks, and we usually film about 3 episodes at a time. So you'll know a little inside. You'll see Eric wearing the same shirt, and then sometimes we have to do reshoots. So I'm like, Eric, I'll send him a screenshot. I'm like, this is the shirt you're wearing. Come in, right? And if you start looking in the background, you'll see like there's stuff. There's people that film. Ryan Rogers comes in here and films in my office. I film in my office. There's other people that come in and out. So I got to tear down the studio and put it back up. I get it as close as I can, right? But we have some episodes that are coming up, and originally episode 2 was supposed to be the 80s, right?
Yes.
And as I turn around here, we're going to do a video file. I want to show you. Now, we got to it, and as Brett walks away, I'm going to call him out because he's going to be part of. Oh, no, absolutely. Take care of your kid.
Family first.
Is that we've decided to redo the episode because the 80s is about the 80s here. So if you were alive in the 80s, raise your hand. Right? If you were a teenager in the 80s, raise your hand. Right? Who remembers Starlight Theater
Star Theater?
Star Theater, right? Getaway Arcade, stuff like that. So as we go through that, we found out we don't have pictures of those things because nobody had cell phones back then. So we got a scavenger picture here and there. So we had to pause that episode, right? Because what we're going to do is when I save up enough money to afford the bar tab, is that we are going to get Jeremy Garner, we're going to get Eric, Brett, and a couple other 80s children out there to come sit around and talk about it and see what we can do to make an episode.
Reminisce.
Right? And reminisce. So, but because I did work really hard on that intro, I'm going to show you guys that intro. because it'll kind of show you some of the things that are coming for Laclede Relics, right? Once again, have to do the magic of dual cast here, so you'll have to give me just a hot second. Why? Yes.
Yes.
We haven't quite ended the live yet. And for some reason, it's running away from me here. I think it's in...
And that's all part of the process. We'll get together, we'll record, we'll stumble across something new. I'll call him and I'll be like, hold off, we're not doing that one now. I've got
Right.
more information, I've got an interview, I've got something we've got to go follow up with. So that we record them in a sequence, but by no means are they going to drop in that sequence.
I've lost my folder, so you're going to have to give me just a second.
Oh, yes.
To Eric.
Yeah.
Have you digitally archived your postcards? And if you haven't, would you be willing to?
I'm actually, I wrote a book about Harold Bell Wright back in 2002, and I actually plan to put them in another book that I want to release. And it'll just be basically Lebanon, Laclede County postcards, and try to share it with everybody that way.
Okay, sorry, found it.
About 50 of his postcards, I'll share them with you.
So real quick before we do this, a fun story about he come in to record one day.
Oh, gosh.
And we have 150 of these postcards cataloged to do an episode or bumpers to use them in some way. I went to sleep 4 times because we had no visuals.
True story.
He just sends me a file of visuals. Like Eric writes a script, sends me the script. He comes in and records, and he just pencils in there where the slides are supposed to go, and then I use my editing after that. 47 minutes of him reading descriptions of postcards with no visuals whatsoever. I still listen to it when I fight insomnia.
I help him sleep at night.
Not to take away, because that's the challenge of how do we make it interesting for you guys. All right, so back to the 80s episode.
Is that available?
Yeah, right. Back to the...
It's available for your sleeping
All right.
pleasures.
All right, at home seeing it, so let's look at what we have planned for the 80s.
Hello, family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Laclede Relics. I'm your host, Eric Tudor. Ah, the glorious 80s. On TV, we had The A-Team, Dukes of Hazzard, Miami Vice, Golden Girls, Cheers, and Knight Rider. On the big screen, Ghostbusters, Goonies, Breakfast Club, Return of the Jedi, Highlander, Top Gun, and Gremlins. On music scene, Duran Duran, Hungry Like a Wolf, Michael Jackson, Beat It, and Thriller. Run DMC, Walk This Way, Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer. Pop culture? Oh yeah, we had it. Max Headroom, Pac-Man, Jolt Cola, Pop Rocks, Big Hair. We rode our bikes everywhere while drinking cherry Coke, chasing it with Pop Rocks, and packing a 10-pound boombox. It was an awesome time to grow up, and we did it all here in Lebanon. We did it our way, with our flair, and it was magical. If you were here, you know what I'm talking about. If you wasn't, or maybe a few decades off, stay tuned. I'm going to share it with you. the time the giant of Alton, Illinois visited Lebanon. A gentleman by the name of Robert Wadlow. He was 8 foot, 11 inches tall, wearing a size 33 shoe. He visits Lebanon Hewer's shoe store twice on commercial. Here's a couple slides and pictures. Now, stories were he'd actually left his giant shoe prints somewhere over on the original concrete walkway near the old jail that has just been recently torn down by the courthouse. Going way back in history, did you know a giant meteor hit Laclede County? It was 300 million years ago. Northernmost border of Laclede and Camden County lines, near a little town called Decaturville, some of you might be familiar with. It was speculated it was as large as 400 feet wide, weighing 5 million tons, striking the Earth at an estimated 45-degree angle. The crater impact alone would have been 6,000 feet deep, leaving a 3.5-mile wide crater. If you look at topical maps, you can still see some of the remnants after all of those years, all the construction and everything that is actually still there. Did you know Bonnie and Clyde, as well as Pretty Boy Floyd, the public enemy, stayed several days at our Lebanon Camp Joy on Old Route 66 in one of the small cabins. Now, this cabin is actually said to have been the one that they stayed in that has been recently moved up to the park where the swimming pool is today. The owner's descendants, Joy Fishel Spears and Clark Spears, shared the story, stating their grandparents did not at first recognize the gang, but they did remember they acted a bit odd. They called the authorities, who came
Bye,
to question
live
only
people.
for
Thank you for
illicit
tuning in.
criminals had just left
Thanks for
hours
joining.
before.